All right. Hydrant said he's on his way, 47 and 100, so he's a little behind.
Okay, thank you. Wonder if you just tried to call me and I had this thing turned off.
Is everybody going to be here?
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, so it'll be that and being the orange. That's an, I seen it.
Oh, man.
Where's Joe?
No idea. I haven't talked to him.
Does anybody know where Joe is?
That's what I'm gonna,
Heard from him.
Joe or Steve? Mark's on his way?
I do this and don't have a quorum?
I'm surprised it showed up.
you have Joe's,
Joe's on his way.
is Joe on his way? Okay. And Hydrich is, hey Jeff, can you open it? Thanks.
We,
Joe coming?
I don't know.
So Joe's on his way and Mark's on his way.
Oh, Joe's on his way. I was gonna say, it's pretty odd that he's not here.
So we have Gretchen. 1, 2,
But we still
3.
need 5 here.
or 5. So Gretchen, Joe's on his way, and so is. So just so we've got 2 council members who are on their way, so should be here momentarily.
Mark?
How you doing, Mark? Well, you give us a quorum, and Joe's on his way.
I had to work late.
I figured. Still way up northeast.
No, at the Barnes Hospital.
Well, that's a little better.
Right.
A lot better.
Right. Heck, I wouldn't have drove 80 to get here.
I guess I should. Nice and quiet.
How long are we gonna wait?
I don't know. You call him, and he supposedly is on his way.
You did hear from Joe, didn't you, Darren?
What's that?
Joe is on his way.
Yes.
Maybe that's his voice. Here he comes, I think. Okay.
Councilman?
Okay. Ready? Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Special meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, November 23rd, 2020, 5 p.m. Hydrich,
Here.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Obermark,
Here.
Patke,
Here.
Pettit. Here. Scornia,
Here.
Stolentrep, Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval and adjustment of agenda.
Okay, we need an approval of the agenda.
Make a motion.
Second.
Is that you, Joe?
Whoever.
I had second.
Joe and
I made a
Joe,
motion.
okay. We have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Obermark to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the agenda. Thank you.
Ordinances, resolutions. An ordinance establishing the requirement to wear a face mask in certain locations in order to prevent or limit the spread of the COVID-19 disease, authorizing the adoption of further orders for the implementation of the ordinance, and fixing the time when this ordinance shall become effective.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. Okay, so before we just start a discussion amongst our council members here, I want to reiterate that we will not be taking comments this evening from the public. We've had other opportunities to receive your comments, and we did take comments in writing until noon today, and we have gone ahead and scanned those and forwarded all those to our council members. They've seen all of those comments, and Darren has a hard copy of those comments. If anyone would like to look at those, you can pass those around or whatever. So we will not be taking comments from the audience this evening. If in fact a council member does have a question amongst council members.
Yes, I do. Okay, as I understand it, since the county has passed this, we are under that
Yes.
directive also. So we now have that directive because we are part of Franklin County.
Yes.
And as I understand, in looking at what I read about theirs and what I've seen on ours, the difference basically is in the criteria for ending this.
Yes.
Is that the only difference?
That is the only difference. It is pretty much word for word identical ordinances. It's just that the county had established their ordinance for 30 days. They had stated in their ordinance that it would expire in 30 days, which makes that December 20th. And we were using the metrics, because we had talked at the last meeting when you weren't here, but I think you had called in, that we wanted to see like a trend,
Right.
good metrics.
Right.
I think we threw out that evening metrics for 4 weeks.
Right.
Good metrics.
And that, if we were to do that, so we do have the authority to do that, to change that criteria.
Yes.
Because actually, I guess it would be considered a little bit stricter than the counties, or?
Only insofar as the determination of when it ends.
Right.
The county's terminates automatically December 20th. Yours may or may not,
I see.
depending on the metric.
Now, the county would have the option that they could renew it for another 30 days, right?
Or longer.
Or longer. I mean, they could renew it for another 2 weeks
I
or
understand.
30 days or 60 days or whatever. They would have that option. So that is the big difference.
Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay.
Instead of revisiting this, and again, I think our metric is right on with doing this instead of revisiting every time and going through this again. If we just go with the metric like we have planned, I think that's what we should do.
Okay.
The first time it would be calculated would be November the 30th, based on Section 9 of the ordinance, which is next Monday.
And we would look at the metrics every Monday,
Every
just like we
Monday.
are currently doing with the rental of our city facilities.
Correct.
Are we better making a hard date like Franklin County did, just for planning purposes?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question, Nick.
Are we better to make a hard date, like a for review once a month, instead of doing it weekly? I mean, we could always rescind it whenever, but we'd be better off just for, if someone wants to say rent, the pavilion or whatever, we'd be better off saying, okay, well, right now we know until the 30th of next month it's not going to be able to be rented. Right now, that may change on the short end, but instead of
Yes,
doing
that-
it weekly.
I guess what you're saying, yes, in theory, you could have a lift on that policy with regards to our facilities. If you would just have, in our case, we have one week, I guess, where you would sit there if you had two of those yellows, whereas this, to remove the masking ordinance, that would have to be for 4 weeks straight.
Right.
And just so we know, what was the language, Mark, on that? Just so everyone knows.
Okay, clarifying the metrics that we use is the model of the Harvard Global Health model. The three parameters, the three metrics that we look at every Monday. Number one are the daily case, 14-day average per 100,000 population. So what we pretty much use is directly off the Monday sheet we get from Franklin County. We take that number. Today it's 79.57 average, 14-day running average of new cases. That's one metric. The second is the risk of being hospitalized with COVID. So for example, today, the 14-day rolling average over the past 2 weeks was 26.36 hospital beds compared to the previous 2-week period before that, which was 13.5 beds. So what we look at is decreasing, flat, or increasing. And obviously here, the number of hospital beds in the past 2 weeks compared to the 2 weeks previous has almost doubled. So that is in the red. And then the third is the risk of death dying from COVID. So for today, for the past 2 weeks, there have been 18 deaths reported by Franklin County compared to the previous 2-week period of 13 deaths. So that one is in the red as well. The deaths are increasing. So this week, all three of the metrics were red. And what we look at is, for leasing, is you would have to have 2 of those at least in the yellow in order to lease the property, and that is also what we're proposing in this ordinance, that for a period of 4 weeks, 2 of the 3 metrics being in the yellow in order to lift the mask restriction.
But Mark, what Nick's brought up, the point he brought up, yeah, it seems like there could be a little discrepancy. In other words, for the mask mandate, we're looking at a 4-week measurement.
Correct.
Whereas on our use of city facilities, it was only a 2-week.
1 week, actually.
Yeah.
1 week.
Yeah.
1 week.
Right. So what if that, in 1 week, those numbers go down, but we still haven't reached the 4-week for the mandate?
I would be jumping up and down, Councilman.
Well,
If those metrics were to improve that quickly in 1 week, I'd just be so excited. But that was sort of the idea of looking at it over a 4-week period to look for a trend.
Well, I agree with that. I agree.
So,
Could, if you wanted to, as a council, go back and revisit the policy at a following council meeting about our facilities. I don't think that there's as much demand for those this time of year as what we have, like, for say, in the summer months, when you've got a lot more activities that are taking place where people want to go ahead and rent. The only thing I would think of is maybe your city auditorium, et cetera. You know, that could be one, but we haven't been even in the yellow and 2 of these metrics for 5 weeks, 4 weeks.
Probably 4, yeah.
And due to the situation, people are not looking to rent the auditorium at this time.
That's
So it
correct.
just
I would
becomes a
say demand is not
non-issue.
there anyways.
Correct. There is no demand to rent anything right
Purpose of
now.
that policy in the past was the other mass gathering events that you had, like such as the river, Sunset on the Riverfront, other festivals or things where the street closures are involved, et cetera, those types of things.
Certainly, it would be in the purview of the council. You know, we're recommending 4 weeks, but it's certainly within your purview to change that.
That's merely a policy for our facilities, though, that was not, I mean, that was just something that was agreed upon by the council. Obviously, this gets a little bit more with the masking in public places, even on private property, but in public venues such as stores, et cetera.
Well, I think the toughest question is enforcement. And we talked about, I spoke with the mayor yesterday, a possible separate phone number, email address. Darren, you want to fill us in on that, please?
Yeah, we will go ahead, and what we'll do is we're going to have an email address that people can go ahead if they feel that any concerns that are raised with regards to violation of the ordinance. That's one way. We will also have a separate number that people can go ahead and call, and will be checked daily. Mark's probably going to be given that task to go ahead and check those. Our idea is always to go ahead and educate with regards to this. So if we hear, for example, if there was a complaint that, you know, masks weren't being worn at a certain business, et cetera, the idea would be is that we would call the manager, indicate to them at that time, say, hey, got a concern about, you know, that people are not wearing masks at your place. What can we do to go ahead and help you with regards to meeting that, or enforcing that ordinance, et cetera, maybe whether it's signage or something else that we can go ahead and help with. So that's how our approach of what we intend on how to go ahead and deal with that. The good news is that most of the time, once an ordinance like this is in effect, we do get pretty good with regards to people following the ordinance anyway.
They're not following Franklin County's ordinance. I went into half a dozen stores this weekend, numbers of people, no mask.
I think the
mask.
the first thing you have is, like I said, this was the first weekend. Obviously, it was done late Thursday. It's like I said, it may take a while for them to get that enforcement through.
So who does the enforcement go to? The county, to the health department then? Do we relay anything to the health department?
Correct.
Or
I
how
think
does that
for
work?
other, if this ordinance was not to pass and you just stayed under the county requirement of what they passed, it's my understanding that gets turned over to the health department, but I'll pass that on to Mark if he's got further explanation.
Yeah, what I know is predominantly what I read in the newspaper, where there was a comment from the sheriff's office that they are not going to be the mask police, I think was his terminology. And that the sheriff's office was going to refer potential violations to the county health department. I haven't spoken to anybody at the health department, but I know they're very overworked at the time being. They contracted out some contact tracing with another company because they don't have the staff to handle all the calls that are coming in. So in my own mind, I question whether or not they even have the time and the personnel to go out and handle violations.
How do you verify violation?
Who's talking? Who's talking?
You have a doctor in this room that violated St. Louis County.
Hold on.
There are no comments this evening from the audience, please. This is not a public hearing.
Could I ask, and maybe Chief or some of you who were here before, when the no smoking ordinance was put in, I would guess that initially there were some issues with that and some enforcement issues. How did we handle that at the time?
I don't know how PD handled it, but I know from my perspective, I received 0 tickets, 0 claims, 0 violations for prosecution through municipal court. So as far as I know, it was handled by the PD talking to people.
So initially, everything was warning.
Was what?
A warning, they were advised of the no smoking ordinance. Given the ordinance, advised of how to comply, and given a warning and let it be known that if they continued, then we would have to issue summons, but it never came to that, so.
Okay.
And again, Mark, complaint driven. A lot of people would turn their head, walk right
It was
by it.
complaint driven, we didn't go out and look for it.
A lot of people did turn their head on it. Turned the cheek and didn't call in.
But there's compliance now.
Good compliance.
I just want to say, I voted against it before. I appreciate what the county, what they had to do. That's their decision. I kind of said this the whole time. It wasn't going to work if the city of Washington did it alone. My concern now is the redundancy of the ordinance, of the order. The county has done it. They set it for December 20th. I know I responded last week in saying that there's no reason for us to have this meeting tonight until we can come back and the county list that ordinance, and then we can revisit. But I don't, no, I'm not sorry, I'm not doing it for that. In speaking with the mayor yesterday, we talked about as far as when the right time is to rescind the ordinance. And the wash back and forth would not be good. It wouldn't do us any good to have an order in place, rescind it, put it back in place a few weeks later, take it back off like we're doing with the facilities now. It wouldn't, when we meet the metrics and it comes off, wouldn't do us any good to put it back on in 2 weeks, I guess is what I'm saying. It needs to be there until the situation is under control. My thought process is that the county will revisit it in December, extend if they see it needs to be extended. If they don't, then we as a city of Washington can keep it in place till our matrix or till a drop dead date. So for all of us who are voting against it or speaking against it, the county passed it, so we have to abide by that. And I have to, just like you do, when I go in the store, I abide by the rules. So I'm just asking people to not look into the vote that whether we want it or we don't. Our job is to abide by what our leaders have given us, and from a city of Washington standpoint, we abide by the Franklin County rules and we revisit when it has to be revisited. So my vote tonight is not that, hey, we should not do what the county's doing, because we can't. We have to abide by that. But the timing of what Washington needs to do. So thank you.
I think this is a chance for us to flatten the curve. Mask isn't going to make it go away. I understand that. The vaccine talk is out there. There's room for improvement with everyone. I've been working in St. Louis area quite a bit. It's everywhere, every day down there where I'm working, and we get through. So I know it's an inconvenience. I want it to go back to normal just as much as everybody else does. And if having to wear a mask and maybe save someone else's life, people my age get it. It's a bad 4 or 5 days, but I'd rather take the chance and wear it and maybe not get someone else sick versus the other way around. So.
On the idea of the ending date, I understand what you're saying, and I think both of them have some. What bothers me was the last time, back in April, and you folks may remember this. We had a shutdown basically in effect, and it was going on for a while. And they had set some criteria for when it would be okay, you know? And then the criteria were totally ignored by the state and the county, and the whole thing was dropped and wide open, and this is where we find ourselves today. I don't want to go to another shutdown. And so to me, to do something like this, but if we do something, I just don't know how you can, you set a date and say, that's it, it's gone. I think what Mark has come up with, you know, and these other folks have come up with, it's a way to measure it, you know, and it may not be the best way, I don't know, but at least it's something that we can measure and say, hey, we've reached this point. And then if we, you know, you get there, I guess we could do whatever we have to do, but I don't know. That's what happened to me, that's what happened last time, and I think we paid for it. So I guess to sum it up, I do like the idea of our measurable criteria. I like that.
Well, Mark, you know, I'm glad you brought up the smoking ban a few minutes ago, because I was sitting on the council during this smoking ban. And when I left the house that night to come here, sit in the same chair, I thought to myself, it's another form of Big Brother government telling people what to do. But the emails and phone calls that I got, astronomical. People wanted it. So whether I believed it or not, whether I'm not a smoker, never been, but whether I'm a chain smoker and I disagreed with it, I have to vote for what my people, my constituents asked me to vote for, because we are their voice. Fast forward, 2020. I've returned 350 to 400 emails, returned every one of them. And people tell me 67% of my people, our constituents, telling me they don't want a mask mandate. So excuse me, please, thank you. But I just feel like we as elected officials should be the voice of our constituents. That's why we were put here in this place. That's why we were voted to sit in this seat right here. So to go against what our constituents want, that's Washington, D.C. That's not Wash-Mo. Just my thoughts. And I'm not talking directly to you, Mark. I was just talking about the smoking ban.
And we've had this conversation, and I understand what you're saying. I think a lot of it depends on who it is that communicates with each of us. That was not the case from the response I got. It wasn't 67% were against it. In fact, if anything, people were for it. But what I'm saying is they might know, where I stood or something, and that's why they responded to me and vice versa. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I can't say that, that the people I've heard from, the people I've talked to, the people I'm trying to represent, that's where they are. That's not what I heard.
Well, and I'm just reporting what,
right.
And that's just the grounds I've stood on ever since I was elected in this position, and I still will until I get kicked out of here. So, just my 2 cents.
No, that's good.
Anyone else? Okay.
Need someone to introduce?
I'm sorry?
Holtmeyer did. Okay, sorry, I didn't know.
Sorry.
Okay.
An ordinance establishing the requirement to wear a face mask in certain locations in order to prevent or limit the spread of the COVID-19 disease, authorizing an adoption of further orders for the implementation of the ordinance, and fixing the time when this ordinance shall become effective. Obermark?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
Patke?
Nay.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Pettit? Aye. Hydrich?
Nay.
Solentrep? Wessels?
Aye.
Okay, by your vote, you approve the ordinance with the matrix.
Correct.
right? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
okay. We have a motion by Patke, seconded by Overmark, to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, we are adjourned. Thank you.
I was at the Y.
Friday, I changed my vote.